Thank you for joining us today. This is the second video that we're doing with Michelle Bedingfield, who is the Executive Director of the Harmony House in LaGrange, Georgia. And our theme is on domestic violence. Let me encourage you that if you have not watched the first video, please go back and watch the first video and then come back and watch this one too. Or either watch this one and go back and watch the first one, but you need to see both of them. That's what I'm getting at. And you will be able to find those on www.troopbaptist.org/videos and look under the domestic violence tab. And as I said, this is video number 2. Michelle, I am glad to have you back in studio again.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell folks all there is to know about Michelle that you want them to know.
All right. Well, I'm Michelle Bedingfield, and I'm the wife of Lee Bedingfield, and I have 3 great kids. And I've worked everywhere from the criminal justice system to partnering with DFACS to unplanned pregnancies, and now I'm the director at Harmony House, and I touch a little bit on some addiction and recovery. So.
And she does an excellent job, I might add.
Well, thank you, Brother Aaron.
Very much a valuable resource in our community. Well, today we're going to continue the conversation we started on the last video. And last video we were honed in on domestic violence in the church and how it is prevalent in our churches and things to look for and stuff like that. So if you listeners have not watched that video, please go back and do that. It'll give you some insights on your churches. And I would even suggest that maybe in your small group or whatever that you play the video. If you have the opportunity, download it, and if you have the means to do so, I guess would be the best way to say it, to play that maybe in your Sunday school class or whatever kind of small group it is. It will be very helpful. It's a conversation that needs to take place in our churches. All right, we're going to start today. Just let me simply ask you, what is domestic violence?
It's a good question.
Right.
So most people think it's a battered woman, like the pictures show, you know, the black and blue sitting in a dark room and cowered down in a corner. But that's rare. That's not always what it looks like. Domestic violence is defined by basically one person having coercive power, power and control over another. So basically it's wanting to control that situation and the person and everything about it. So
I have learned in life, I'm taking an opposite view on this, that I very seldom want total control of everything, because total control brings total responsibility.
It does.
I don't like to walk alone. I like to have a crowd around me. But anyway, I just throw that in there for whatever it's worth.
Well, I've seen some great people around you today.
Oh yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The magic behind what happens here. You have some great ones.
People don't realize, do they?
They
I have a
don't.
wonderful technical crew here. John Maxwell, who's one of the leadership gurus that I like to read behind, he says, "You're not smart enough, you don't have enough brains to know everything you need to know in life." He said, "So therefore you better learn how to borrow brains."
Borrow brains.
So that's what I do with my technical crew here. I'm borrowing brains.
And I may borrow that comment from John.
That'd be fine. And I'm borrowing your brain today
Yes,
on this.
absolutely.
All right, well, tell us about Harmony House. What is Harmony House?
All right. So Harmony House celebrated 15 years this past October. There was another great program in LaGrange called Project Love before us.
I remember that.
You remember that, yep. And just through different changes of management and leadership and board and funding, they eventually closed. And we went about a year without anything here in LaGrange. And through the foresight of our chief of police, Lou Dekmar, and at the time Sheriff Turner and Pete Skandalakis, the DA, they brought together some people that just worked around domestic violence and said, we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We had over 600 cases here in Troup County.
Wow.
In 1 year. Only one of them actually wanted to go to outside of our community to get services. We could do better. Mm-hmm. And so they brought together a leadership team and formed an advisory committee, later formed a board, and here we are 15 years later. So started out with just being an emergency shelter. We were a 14-bed, 30-day domestic violence shelter for women to go to, women. Now, if you think you're going to leave an abusive relationship of 20 years to go to a 30-day bed, it's not going to happen. It worked, but it wasn't what we needed. We were putting Band-Aids on the situation.
Yeah.
So now we're much more than just a 30-day shelter. Women can stay there as long as they're moving forward on their goals. We're going to continue to work with them.
Good.
We also noticed that a lot of times women don't want to come into the shelter. They may need the services to stay safe where they are. Never, ever, ever recommend a person to leave because it could put them in more danger.
Mm-hmm.
The leaving is the most dangerous time. And so we have what we refer to as outreach. So we can work with them on developing a safety plan on how to stay safe until it's time to leave. We partner with their place of business. We can partner with the church. We can partner with organizations or neighbors. And it's a community effort to keep her safe. And then we'll continue to work with them after they leave. I have 2 advocates that work just with outreach. Then we decided that we recognized that just in our own statistics, sorry, I hit the mic, our own statistics, we had 80% of our clients have been sexually assaulted at some point in their life, which was huge.
Prior to the abuse.
Prior to the
domestic
abuse. Right, so they may have been abused as a child, they could have been as a teenager in college, or it could be by their current partner.
So let me restate that again. I heard you say 80% of your clientele in domestic violence were sexually abused somewhere prior to the domestic violence.
Right.
Wow.
Or in conjunction with that same partner, yes. That was huge.
Yes, that's huge.
So we started looking around, we started talking to other people, and once again recognized that there was no services in LaGrange, Troup County, for adult victims of sexual assault. We have a great program through the Child Advocacy Center for Children, but there was nothing if you were 18 or older. So we started working with that. We're again partnered with the DA's office and with the Child Advocacy Center and the hospital and the colleges, and we actually wrote a protocol to address sexual assault. So now, if a sexual assault victim reaches out, there's services. And it might be something that happened in the past. We've had some that have been sexually assaulted for years, and now that their divorce is over, they're in another relationship, it's just hard to overcome what happened. And so we can assist them with that.
Probably a whole different program for a whole different day, but
Yeah.
it would just be amazing to know how, and I'm saying a woman, could be a man or any, either way, but how they process coming out of sexual abuse into domestic violence abuse to a new relationship. How in the world do you process from going from all that junk to the new? And I mean, I know God's got to be in it, but I could, like I said, that's probably a whole show. But
It is.
yeah.
It's really, truly reestablishing trust, and we work with some amazing counselors in town, and there's a type of therapy they do. The acronym's EMDR, but it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it helps to reprocess that trauma that happened, so that they can move forward and go past. And that can happen with any trauma: a car accident, a house fire, or any type of assault. So EMDR is a great tool that we use. That's just one of them, but that we help to get the domestic violence and sexual assault victims going forward into healthy relationships. But a lot of that's done through outreach. So we have the shelter, we have outreach, we have sexual assault, and then the last program we have is prevention. Because hopefully I would love to work my way out of a job one day.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
And so we're going to start young. We start talking to kids at any age. We can go in and talk to them. A lot of times it's just referred to as bullying in your home. We make it very gentle and kind, but we want to know that the door is open for them to come talk to us, all the way up to teenagers. And we go into the high schools, into the health classes, into anywhere that they'll let us come in and talk to high school kids, youth groups, about dating relationships. So those are the 4 areas that we work in: prevention, sheltering, outreach, and sexual assault.
And we were speaking off camera, and she's given me some amazing statistics today, and not amazing in a good way, amazing in a bad way. But what is the average age of a person, a teenager, being sexually abused? Get it out in a minute.
All right. So I think we're talking about women, mainly women is the way the stat is written. Women that start their abusive relationship between 13 and 23. That's when the first event of abuse happens.
Okay, it was abuse instead of saying, okay.
Yep. So if they are more likely to be murdered as adults.
Oh, wow.
So they have found that the majority of women that are murdered in intimate partner relationships by their partner started their very first abusive relationship between the ages of 13 and 23.
Well, how common is it for a woman, and again we use a woman, to be murdered in a relationship? Is that I know that's the ultimate bad thing that could happen, but is that prevalent or is that the anomaly?
Luckily, that's not as common.
Yeah.
Usually, the abuse goes on and on for years. The average in Georgia is anywhere from 120 to about 140 women, or victims. I can't even say women. There's usually between 120 to 140 victims of domestic violence that are murdered every year.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, and if you figure half of those started or had their first abusive relationship between 13 and 23. So that's why it's important that we do a lot of prevention and talk to teenagers now about what does a healthy relationship look like? What are the red flags? You know, there's no reason that your teenage boyfriend needs to be calling you and blowing up your phone all afternoon. So,
Well, I would think maybe parents would say, well, you know, I just don't want to have this conversation with my child. Well, let me tell you, folks, if you don't have the conversation with the child, somebody's having a conversation with your child, and it may not be what you want to be communicated.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a hard conversation to have. But I would probably start it around the age of 8. And around 8, start talking about what healthy relationships look like. Talk about respect. Talk about being kind, and be a role model. Mimic it, and call it out when it's not right too.
Yeah. Well, here again is another show for another day. But I think with all of the, and I'm generalizing, I'm painting with a broad brush. I know this, but it's still my feeling. With all the messed up role models we have in families today, what better tool could you have as a parent than to model a healthy relationship between or for your children?
Yeah.
One woman, one man, married together for a lifetime, in love, in church, serving the Lord, being that mom and daddy that you're supposed to be. Now, that's not going to mean that something doesn't happen, but it's sure going to tilt the odds in your favor that it won't happen.
But you know what? And you're going to have problems in that family you just described. There is going to be arguments. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be. I mean, when you parent together, that's the hardest thing you can do a lot of times. But showing your children how to work through those conflicts without using your fist, without belittling and cutting someone down, having a healthy disagreement. You know, that's excellent advice to role model.
Yeah, my wife gave me the rules of us arguing one time. She said the rules are she wins. I'm kidding, folks. I'm kidding, Mary Ann. I'm kidding.
Oh man.
Well, let's move on to this.
Okay.
All right, I'm John Doe caregiver or helper or whatever, or Sally Jane, whoever.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest frustrations I'm going to find trying to help somebody that's a victim?
You know, they're going to go back. I can count on one hand in 15 years the number of times I've seen a woman leave and never turn around and go back. And I'm going to pause right here. I keep talking about the woman as the victim. I will share that we do know that men are abused. And last year alone, not last year 2020, but 2019, we assisted 9 men. But the majority of people that we help are women. So, yeah, the most time a woman is going to go back 7 times before she's gone for good.
Say that again.
Most women are going to leave 7 times before they're gone.
Wow.
And you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get tired. You're going to get, you're going to pour everything into them, giving them a place to stay. You're going to give them finances. You're going to stay up with them and listen to them cry. You're going to see the cuts and bruises. You're going to hear the horrible stories. And then he's going to call. And he's going to say, I'm so sorry. You know, I got laid off from work, and I went out and I started drinking, and I came home and the door was locked, and, I punched the door in, and then it just kind of snowballed. But, if you hadn't locked the door, this wouldn't have happened.
You got to be there for it.
And I tried to call you, but you wouldn't answer your phone. So, I mean, if you hadn't done these things, this wouldn't have happened. So, baby, I'm sorry. Why don't you come on back home, and we're going to make it work. And so she goes back. And here you are as the bystander or the friend or the coworker, and you're like, oh my gosh, do you not remember? No, him losing his job does not force him or validate the fact that he can kick a door in and physically put his hands on you. Him drinking alcohol, it contributes, we agree with that. But I know of many people that drink, and they drink way too much, and they don't go home and abuse their partner, right?
That's true.
So it contributes, but it's not the excuse. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So people are going to get frustrated. My biggest suggestion is don't give up on them. Just stay there. The abuser's going to try to isolate you. They're going to try to tell them that you're the bad guy, that you don't want them together. Don't listen to him. Keep calling. Keep checking in on that friend. Be safe about it. Call us. Call Harmony House. We can help you with some safety planning on how to do that safely, because you don't want to put yourself in danger. But stay in touch.
Well, what are some of the different types? Now, I know we've talked about actual physical abuse, but I'm sure there's a myriad of other abuses. What is it? What are the many faces of domestic violence?
I think most people think of the physical, right? And they think that the victim's going to walk around with black eyes and cuts and hair missing. The hardest ones to prove is the emotional. And it starts out slow. I'm sure most of y'all have heard the story about the frog in the boiling water and how it just kind of stays in there. And then eventually it dies. Sometimes domestic violence is like that. It doesn't just say, we're going to go out on a date, we're going to get married, and when we come home, I'm going to abuse you, right? It's not something written out that you get ahead of time in the rule book, right? So domestic violence happens slowly, and it happens discreetly, and it happens behind closed doors. And it's, you know what? When you wear red, you look absolutely beautiful. But I'm worried about you. Like when you wear red, everyone's going to be looking at you, and you look hot. And so from now on, let's just don't wear red anymore, okay? And I like your hair, but when you wear it down, you look a little bit too easy. And I'm afraid guys are going to be hitting on you. So I want maybe keep your hair short for me, and don't wear that lipstick. It just sends the wrong message. So now in the beginning, I told you it was about power and control. And so now I'm controlling what you look like. And then if you happen to wear red, what are you? Some kind of, and then the names start coming. I'm belittling you, I'm calling you names, I'm attacking your character, and I'm lowering that self-esteem. And nobody's gonna like you. I mean, your friends aren't gonna wanna be around you, your parents aren't gonna be around you, and these are the messages that an abuser sends. So it's that emotional, it's the belittling, it's the calling you stupid. Why can't you work with the control? Can you not work the simple remote control? I mean, change the channel for me, for goodness sake. I told you I don't like this show. Get up and change the channel. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have trouble working a remote control at my house. They're so complicated nowadays. But my husband's never called me stupid because of it. So the belittling, the emotional, there's the verbal, there's the isolation. Sometimes it's financial. Financial abuse comes when you're only allowed to have so much money per week. Now, a lot of guys will joke on that one. They'll say, oh, my wife only gives me $10 a week for lunch, you know. But it truly is keeping them without any finances whatsoever. Watching every penny, watching every dime, and then controlling their finances so that they cannot buy their prescriptions for their mental illness meds, or their antidepressant medicines, or their blood pressure medicine. So it's controlling the medication by controlling the money.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other layers to it. It's not just the simple.
Well, there's a fine line, especially when you're talking about the money. But I'm just thinking about Mary Ann and myself. We do that. I mean, you got a couple that's together, and I'm going down a little rabbit trail here.
Okay, I'll follow.
That somebody's got to be in charge of the finances or whatever. You got to be agreed on what you're going to do.
Right.
So she and I take X amount of money a week, and that's what we live on. It's just spending money, walking around money, whatever. So if anybody just looked at that, they would say, oh, he's giving her X amount of money and he has her on a tight leash and what? No, her name's on that checking account just like mine is. And most time what she'll do, because it's an agreed upon thing of what we're doing, what I'm trying to tell you. And if she runs out of money, she'll say, go get me some more money. So I go get her some more. So there's kind of a fine line.
Yeah.
And I see exactly what you're saying, because they're using it to control and manipulate, and she can't get more money, or she has no say in it, or whatever.
Right.
But then another thing, you've got financial control, and it has really nothing to do with it. I said it was a rabbit trail I'm going down.
Well, no, but even ruining their credit. You know, what if I took a credit card out in my husband's name and didn't tell him, but I'm ruining his credit? You know, I mean, little things like that. Therefore, when she finally does have the ability to leave, she has no finances, she has no credit, she has no vehicle. I mean, everything's in his name. Most women stay in an abusive relationship because of the finances and because of the kids.
Wow.
So if at Harmony House, if we can help remove those barriers, that opens up a door for them to leave.
And as a pastor, I am not for divorce. I really am not. But sometimes I've had people tell me, well, brother, we're going to stay because of the kids. I said, no. If that's the only reason you're staying, you're doing a injustice to your children. You know, don't do that. Now, I am not for divorce. Now, somebody going to say, brother, Avery went out and said this leak. No, I didn't. I'm not for divorce. But I'm not for that other either.
Right.
Right?
No.
You warp your kids' mind. They're smart. They know whether y'all like each other or not, or whether we like each other or not, whatever.
I've had women say, so the physical violence, the verbal, the yelling, screaming happened behind closed doors, and it was after the kids went to bed. So the kids have no idea. No, the kids don't know that we fight like this.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, they
kids
do
know.
too. They know.
I'll tell you right now. The
Yeah.
kids know.
Yeah.
They hear it. They see it. They can sense the eggshells that mom and dad have to walk around on, and that's not healthy.
No, it's not.
They need to, like back to the conversation we had in the beginning. Kids need to have a healthy home to grow up into.
That's right.
It's not always going to be perfect,
No.
but it can be healthy.
Amen. You also, I'm sure, will provide training to civic groups or anybody that would have need of your services.
Absolutely. There's a lot of rabbit trails we can go down.
Yeah.
So if there is something specific that they need some help in, call me. I'll be more than happy to come in and just talk about domestic violence 101. We can talk about just some of the signs, how to recognize it, how to respond to it, and then how to refer people to get help for it. We recognize that I'm not an expert in the Bible. I know the Bible. I go to church. I could tell you, I think there's something in the book of James, and it says something around this. But I'd call you, Brother Aaron, and say, Brother Aaron, where can I find this scripture? And you know it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I would hope that they would do the same.
Yeah.
You know, if you recognize something and you really don't know how to have that conversation, call me. You know, you don't even have to tell me the victim's name. You can just say, Michelle, there's someone here, and here's the situation. How do I have this conversation? Or I'll come into the church and we can talk to your youth group about what dating violence looks like and recognizing some of those signs. We can, and we do it fun for the youth group. We play games. We can come into the ladies' Bible studies and just give them some ideas and pointers as to how to have relationships and conversations with the women that they're around. We can go talk to the men too, because I'm gonna tell you, it's a lot easier for a man to walk up to another man and say, "Look, Brother Aaron, you don't need to be treating your wife this way," than it would be for a woman to walk up and say that. So sometimes empowering men to stand up and stand in that gap is very helpful.
Oh, to be a biblical man. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Well, now we've come through all of this today, and we're going to wrap it up with this. If somebody has watched either of the two videos that we have produced, and they said, well, I would really like to help. And maybe it might be even be somebody who said, well, I was a victim of that, and I have survived, and I'm to a point in my life now where I can give back, and I want to give back. How can they help the center?
Absolutely. Financial is always nice. So if they want to put us in their monthly contributions, if there's a church out there that wants to give monthly or an individual that wants to give monthly, that keeps the lights on, that keeps gas in the car, that buys the bus tickets. The monetary is what keeps it together. Beyond that, if you want to do tangibles, cleaning supplies are always needed. Toilet paper, paper towels, laundry detergent, things like that. You're going to be at Kroger, you're going to be at Walmart, just pick up an extra bottle of it and call me. If you want to do a drive there at your church, I'll be more than happy to come by and speak and share information, and then you can do the drive afterwards. Gift cards are always nice. With COVID, a lot of times we've been putting more and more people in a hotel or helping them to relocate to different places. So a gift card, do it. You know, I hear about these money trees where people paperclip money onto a tree. do a gift card tree and in honor of Harmony House. And then just watch our Facebook page. Every now and then we'll put messages out there. I know in the near future I'm fixing to run out and buy a toddler bed for a family.
Oh,
So
what?
a toddler bed.
Oh, a
Apparently,
toddler bed.
yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, a toddler's not big enough for a big bed, but they're too small for a crib. So there's this in-between size bed,
Mhm.
and we have a planned entrance of a woman with a small child, and she needs a toddler bed. So, keep an eye on our Facebook, because I can always post up there the things that we're going to be needing as well.
Okay. And I would think that it goes without saying, above anything else, pray. Pray for
Oh
you.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Pray for my staff,
Yeah.
my team. I hate calling them a staff. That sounds like an infection. Pray for my team. Yes.
I'll use that again.
But pray for my team. I have an amazing team that I get to do the fun stuff, like sit here and chit chat with you and all these wonderful people out there. My team is seeing the front lines, and they're the ones that take these phone calls, and they're the ones doing the safety plans, and they're the ones driving these clients around. So keep my team in your prayers, that they just have the right words and the right insight as to how to stay safe and keep our victims safe. And then pray for the victims.
Well, thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much for coming in today
Thank
and doing
you.
these videos with us.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you for watching. You should have or have seen or will see some contact information through the course of this video. So if you have any questions, the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. So if you have any questions, utilize the numbers that have been put on the screen. You can call us here at the association office. We can get you in touch with Michelle. So let us know how we can be of service to you. So wherever you are in the world today, I hope you have a blessed rest of your day. Thank you.